Okay, hello everybody. Welcome. My name is Trisha Park. I am the Associate Director of Cleaver Workshops. This is our Cleaver Magazine's 45th issue contributors reading. We're so delighted that all of you are here, and we're really looking forward to hearing from all of our fabulous Cleaver writers who made issue 45 possible. I'm now going to hand it off to Karen Ryle, founder of Cleaver Magazine and our editor-in-chief.
Hello, everyone, and welcome all of you to Cleaver Magazine's issue number 45 contributors reading. My name is Karen Ryle, and I'm the co-founding and chief editor of Cleaver. 2024 marks our 11th year as a magazine in this world. And just so you know, we published our first full issue in March 2013. For those of you who are not familiar with Cleaver, we are a quarterly literary magazine. We publish fresh fiction, poetry, creative nonfiction, and flash every March, June, September, and December. We also publish book reviews, craft essays, and interviews, and we host a workshop series and a workshop and masterclass series, which I hope you will check out. Next Sunday afternoon, Grey Wolf Press editor Annie Liu will present a live interactive Zoom masterclass on publishing your book, which I guarantee will be fantastic. And there are still a few spots left if you would like to join. Trisha can put a link in the chat to that workshop. If you can't make it, we also send a recording to all registrants. And you can check out our upcoming live masterclasses and recorded classes on the website. Our book review has been quiet for the past few years, but we're relaunching with a fantastic new duo of book review editors. So if you write reviews or have a book coming out, check out the book review page for info about how to get involved. We'd love to hear from you. We also have a weekly newsletter where we send out writing tips by our contributors, our staff, and our community of readers. It's a super popular feature, so check it out and consider writing a tip for the weekly newsletter. It gets a lot of readers. About our name, cleave is a Janus word, also known as an auto-antonym, meaning both itself and its opposite. To cleave is both to stick tight and to fall away. A cleaver is the most broad-edged and brutally efficient kitchen knife designed to be swung like a hammer for the most effective channel of force. Cleave also means to come together with strong attachment. Cleaver runs its literary magazine on 100% volunteer labor with many fine editors whose invaluable contributions make our magazine possible. I serve as head fiction editor, webmaster, and graphic designer, and chief cook and bottle washer. So the buck stops here if you have any Cleaver-related issues. Speaking of issues, I'm tremendously proud of issue 45 with its extraordinary collection of talented writers. A special shout out to Rebecca Entel, who was my undergraduate student at the University of Pennsylvania many, many years ago, and is now a well-published author and creative writing professor, and was one of our earliest contributors, including a piece in our very first issue back in 2013. So thank you, Rebecca, for believing in us all these years. It's so great to see you here and in issue 45. And thanks to all of you for your enthusiasm and support and for trusting us as stewards of your work. Take it away, Trisha.
Thanks, Karen. It's so wonderful to be here with all of you and to be a part of Cleaver that's been just rolling along for so long. And all of that is really due to Karen's hard work and devotion. And so it's really lovely for us to be all here in community. So we're going to start off first with Katie Tonellato. Katie is a queer writer based out of Flagstaff, Arizona. Originally from Tacoma, Washington, she is currently an assistant teaching professor and coordinator for Northern Arizona University's MFA program. Katie organized the Bird in Your Hands Prize, a contest centered around BIPOC voices. She was a runner-up in the Writer's Advice Flash Fiction Contest in 2021 and participated as a judge for the contest in 2022. Katie has been published in Northwest Boulevard and the Hive Avenue. Thank you. Please welcome Katie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Trisha and Karen. I'm excited to see everyone else here. It's so awesome to see after reading, the other pieces in the magazine. It's awesome to see all the authors here. So, all right, I'm going to read this piece. It's kind of a short piece. It's called Baby Sweetheart Honey. All right. When I was young, they called me baby, sweet pea, honey, cherry pie, chubs. So often they called me these things that when they called me my name, my real name, I curdled into myself, unfamiliar, anticipating something unknown the way animals cower in their homes, teeth bared. They called me those things until I grew teeth, grew wings, snarled at them. My mom used to read the paper on Sunday mornings, curled up in bed, without makeup on her face, reading glasses resting on the rim of her nose. This is when I was small, in the way we were all small once, nestled at our mom's feet under the covers of her bed, hand wrapped around her ankle. Little bear cub, she would call me, taking stock of my tininess. The bean pod shaped ears, the jagged tic tac teeth, the slim, transparent fingernails, sharp enough to leave a mark. A dishy daydream swallowed by blankets. I could believe I was how she imagined me to be. Cute, unreserved, preserved in my youth. Yet, even then, the sense bestowed in me, frantically crawling like a wasp through time to the surface, was that I would get older. My cheeks' baby fat would shrivel, my mouth would grow, push my baby teeth out to clang like coins on the floor. My limbs would engorge, stretch, until the baby metamorphosed into a different sort of creature, one that resembled a smaller form, but grew ugly, its value pruned from it, like leaves snipped from a mangrove tree, drifting down between breathing, raveled roots. Days slipped like pages of a kineograph. Sunday mornings disassociated from my mother, written in lead pencil on the page. I launched myself down lush grass hills, conquered the gnarled branches of maple trees, reaped summer fruit through mazes of blackberry bushes. In the corner of each drawing, my little brother trailed behind, screaming my name, screaming, slow down, slow down, slow down. When I arrived home, my brother was nowhere behind me. My parents reached for him, shouldering me toward the kitchen sink, but their hands came away with phantoms of my play. Blackberry juice, dirt. Out the front door, down the steps, my mother turned back. Satan's spawn. I grinned, devilish, born to be. A boy approached me, creeping over thick branches and the underbrush, hands coaxing gently. He took his time, waiting in the periphery until I was used to his scent, until it was like he'd been there all along, until he got close enough to call me baby. His gentleness smelled of soured milk. I'm told I'm full of wickedness. He can't see it, so I will make him see. A door slammed. Footsteps echoed into the house, a thief rummaging through the dark, stealing the baby dolls from my closet to sell, but it was only my mother, her breath smoky, pungent, like rotting fall leaves, like smoke still hot from fire, like what the fuck are you doing just sitting around? Her face hovered inches from mine, a dragon, her eyes lidded, staring straight through my pupils into what rested in the pit of my stomach, my center, raw and shriveled, a kitten shrieking. You little pissant. She sunk her nails into the soft skin of my jaw and punctured through the baby fat. The howls from my belly poured out of the hole in my cheek. I imagined she heard them, silvery sweet-toned scores, pitching from one note to the next. A man rushed in, immediately, with baby, sweetheart, woman. I devoured him, crumbled, shook in his arms. The hunger made me weak, the want made me want more, and those devilish parts of me sloughed off. I wanted to be small again. He wrapped me up, pretended to feed me, but before I could notice there was no nourishment, before I could bat a hand away, he held me in his arms and forced it down my throat. Come on, darling, another hit. The streets were kind, filled with walls, divots like chairs, cement textured like a rug. The streets became a house. I held a spoon in one hand, a lighter in the other. I did not look at the people invading my house. I burned the spoon, brought it to my eyes. I was struck. We're fucking eating here, dirty crackhead. I cried in the hospital, ferociously. The sorrows of my life spilled onto the floor in a great heap, so the doctors could see. I begged, diagnose me, give me a cure. The doctors ignored me, passed me over like the animal I was, caged up, leashed by IV drips and oxygen monitors. They sliced me open, took out my heart, and slipped a changeling inside, grotesque, weak, with half the capacity for love. A nurse checked my drip and flinched away from the pockmarks on my face. No one said a word to me for days, for hours, for minutes, for seconds. Nobody here knew my name. My mother washes my face with a damp cloth. I know it is her. I know her hands, like I know the next step of the staircase in my childhood home. Oh, sweetheart. I reach up for her. Call me something. Call me anything. I'll become whatever you call me. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Katie. That was beautiful. Next up, we have Nicole Brogdon. Nicole is an Austin, Texas trauma therapist interested in strugglers and stories with fiction in Vestal Review, Flash Frontier, Bending Genres, Bright Flash, SoFlo Pojo, Cafe Irreal, 101 Words, Centrifixionist, etc. She's a 2024 Best Microfiction nominee and Smoke Long Microfiction finalist. Welcome, Nicole.
My story is called The Pod. I never felt enough eyes on me, never enough love, never enough arms wrapping around my body, nor hands chopping vegetables for soup, not enough healthy backs moving my furniture, more hands putting on clean sheets, floral sheets, washed by someone else, clean hands bringing me the trash can when I'm down 5 days with stomach flu, multiple hands for multiple orgasms, hands gently plugging all my body's holes. A village, at least a pod, might fix our wounds, might patch our leaks and dents. This I believed for a while. One person could never satisfy it all. My first boyfriend always studying, another working, other men lying about where they'd been, who they'd been with, who they were. Deceptive about musky odors on their shirts. So why pretend monogamy works? Why wait for that one unicorn, constant and true? Why insist that the beast have a horn at all? I remember 4th grade winter break. Skinny mother dressed in navy. I've been waiting all week for holiday presents, I said, Christmas Eve morn. She winked at me over cereal. Santa likes the sales, day before Christmas. Then she drove to the mall alone in the Volkswagen to load up her sleigh. Where's your mother? Dad asked, spiking his coffee with a long whiskey pour. She's Christmas shopping this morning like she always does Christmas Eve. I kept washing dishes. He took a long slurp. So she's going to sit on Santa's lap. A big ho, ho, ho to her. Dad rummaged the cabinet, grabbing another bottle of Jack. I'll be out in the garage building a time machine. Mom came home after dark, struggling with shopping bags, arranging gifts beneath the Christmas tree. Dad weaving in from the garage. Where the hell were you? He punched her hard, knocking her into the Christmas tree. That same artificial tree we had for years, no lights on it. Mom fell backward, the tree falling, Mom breaking through the window glass behind, putting her back and arms, no one to stop him. So last summer, my husband Dan suggested we form a pod, get 2 more people involved, so he could finally have sex with men, so we could stay together, expand our minds, live like libertines instead of suburban salt and pepper shakers in the dying bourgeois birdcage of marriage, get help with cooking, have companions for me when Dan traveled. Why pretend monogamy works, he asked. Let in the group, interview, hug, inhale the pheromones, try them out one by one, vote them in or out of the house. Open up the home, the bedroom, your heart, your mind, your legs. Never lonely again. Okay. He was happy then, affectionate, especially when the French girl, Muriel, answered our ad, arriving in cutoffs and a tank top. She tossed her clothes right off. Long tangled mermaid hair grew from her head and from her body crevices. Then the Mexican guy, Carlos. You like swarthy people, I know it, Dan exclaimed to me, slapping Carlos on the butt, almost knocking him down, like he was buying exotic horses at a stable. The first month was like a house party, playing games at night, twister, water guns, strip poker. Dan was like a kid at Disneyland, whee, going up and down on all the rides. We took turns cooking, spicier meals now. The French woman was a sous chef. She prepared a fine bechamel sauce and beef bourguignon. Being French, she ate small portions. We gained all the weight. Carlos was a whiz at repairs. Dan was never handy. Carlos fixed misaligned doors, leaky faucets, mounted ceiling fans to cool us off. We paired off, took turns in the nice bedroom. Sometimes Dan stood in the doorway, watching, cheering, though I told him, stop it. The sheets were often dirty, so I changed them twice weekly. And the toilets kept stopping up. All that French food, charro beans and migas. Carlos unclogged our commodes, complaining our old pipes needed replacing. Muriel borrowed my jewelry, dipping into my earrings. I began to find my earrings, often a single fishhook bauble, everywhere, in bed, poking me in the ass. She'd walk into the den wearing my underwear, pulling at the seat of it, indicating too big for her. This hangs like a diaper. Quit wearing my underwear, I said. She yawned. Someone needs to skip the potatoes. Dan held weekly house meetings, talking. He wanted us to share, practice collectivism, rise above petty jealousy. Somebody was always fault-finding, who was covetous or resentful, who was not pulling their weight, who was being an asexual, God forbid. Constant chatter, constant touching, my nerve endings flayed. Pod members stayed up late watching TV, loud porn sometimes, which sounded like people undergoing dental surgery. In the end, I missed quiet, complete quiet. I lay in the back bedroom trying to meditate or sleep, working from home, editing. I hardly clocked any hours. Dan stopped going to the office. Instead, he pontificated. Best techniques for oral sex, trendiest nudist vacations, communication rules with outsiders, the clueless repressed masses, while inside our Eden, every day's a holiday. Attachments were our enemies. Muriel, behind on her rent, often curled topless on his lap, like a cat during meetings. Carlos nodded gravely, although I'd heard him talking on the phone to a secret lover, a woman outside the pod, breaking the rules. One afternoon, I sat in bed reading. Dan stood over me, wrapped in a loincloth. Behind him, Muriel held a tequila bottle in one hand, rubbing mentholated oil on his bare back with the other, licking her fingers like it was frosting, winking at me. Muriel, I said, keep the eucalyptus oil away from your mucous membranes. She grinned. My earrings. She was wearing my earrings. My mother's earrings. Faceted blue beads winking in the light in front of her snaky curls. I pulled Muriel's ear. She shrieked. I slid the baubles off her earlobes. I'm disappointed in you, Dan told me. He stepped back, swigging tequila. Not a team player. Self-absorbed, a drag on the pod. Next meeting, we start punishments. I sat, tying my running shoes. I've been punished enough. Where are you going? Dan asked. Outside. You narcissist, run into the void, Dan yelled. Carlos smiled from the hallway. Can I come? I'll make you feel better. I'm sure you could, I answered, but no, I need to be alone. Dan hollered. You think you can shove the genie back into the bottle? The night mother left Dad. She looked like a panda, 2 black eyes. I've tried to be a team player, she said to the car mirror. In the back seat, feeling older than a 5th grader, I leaned on my Pegasus backpack. Mom, it's not good for us being on his team. You're right, she said. We'll find good people, helpful folks, however long it takes. We drove a long time down Highway 45, past the city limits, past the acrid gas refineries, through South Texas. The sky was full of stars. I'd forgotten. Eventually, we reached the ocean. Parked, clambered down the seawall. We waded into the salt water, holding hands tightly, rinsing our wounds. Don't let go, Mother said. So for a long time, I gripped her hand in mine, splashing, laughing. Look, she said, pointing, someone's placed stars high above us. Stars watching over the glossy sea, winking at us like bright, dazzling eyes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Up next, we have Federico. Federico Escobar grew up in Cali, Colombia, and has lived in New Orleans, Jerusalem, Oxford, and Puerto Rico. He has published short stories and poems, as well as academic articles and translations in both Spanish and English. His literary work has been published or is forthcoming in Cabinet of Heed, The Fair, Bending Genres, Passenger's Journal, Typishly, Tulane Review, Hermano Cerdo, forgive my pronunciation, Revista Enye, Sad Girl Diaries, and Stones Throw magazine. He currently works in education. Please welcome Federico.
Thank you for being here. So my piece is called Angela. He got to the bus stop, trailed by wet footsteps that merged with the night. His Converse shoes squished as he walked, and his drenched denim jacket clung to a watery button-down with its belly buttons missing. The only person at the bus stop, a woman with dark roots chasing after streaks of dyed blonde hair, sized him up, slid to the end of the bench, and went back to thumb scrolling on her phone. He took off a baseball cap and squeezed what felt like a gallon of water onto the sidewalk. It was raining when I left, he said. She took 5 seconds to return his gaze. Figured, either that or you feed dolphins for a living. I don't feed dolphins for a living, he said, and squeezed again. His left sock this time. Another 5 seconds. Figured out that part too, old man. He stared at a metal sign from 8 years ago that announced a new bus system rolling out in December. So, is there a bus coming or not? Her eyes narrowed at a video on her screen, then relaxed at a status update. She closed the app, reopened it, scowled, looked at him again. Well, there better be because I need to get home pronto. Kid? Something like that. Husband? Something like that too. He rolled his pockets inside out and wrung them. He pulled what was left of a travel brochure with an offer to visit San Andres. Me? I'm just sleepy, he said. Work, she said, not looking up. Something like that. A smile came and went, unseen. He pulled out his belt, combed water out of it, and cracked it forward like a whip. Up went a cloud of mist that would have been a rainbow if the sun had come through. She wriggled in her seat. Good thing I got that haircut. He wiped his scalp. It was a joke, you know. He pointed at his head. Nature's haircut. He stretched out his legs, waited. You? Ever felt nature cheated you out of something? Oh, sure, out of one of those. She pointed at big, windowy houses cresting the hills. With the chill of an afternoon breeze and cellophane quiet nights, and people to pick up after you, to fix things for you. You can say that again. Always wanted to wake up to those views, you know. She looked at a faded billboard for wine across the street, then beyond it at the mountains left sterile by fires. Well, her smile disappeared, cheated out of that, and a noise filled the street again, the braying of a bus. Not their bus. She wrapped her hands around her belly. Empty. The street was empty except for the busyness of cicadas and frogs. She flipped open a mirror and checked what the tears had done to her makeup. Life, right? His gaze was lost in the chiaroscuro of the mountains, fencing them in. All these plans, and then, you know what? Forget plans. Well, listen. He fumbled in his pocket and pulled out his phone, wiping the screen on his sleeve. After a few taps, a song began to play. The opening trumpets made her widen her eyes. Now you're talking, old man. The music jolted them to their feet. Las estrellas y hasta el cielo fueron ellos los testigos del amor que yo te di. He stretched his hand toward her. Angela, will you? My name's not, just for this one song, yeah? She dipped her hand into his, took in his moisture through her palm. They paused there, their breaths slowing down, stretching, falling into the same rhythm. They pushed bags and wet shoes out of the way and spun into each other under the pale light of the bus stop. They danced as a bus roared past them, their bus. His steps followed the trumpets and the drums. His fingers chased each other across her back. Sorry, he said, a loaned word, someone else's word. No, babe, it's me who shouldn't have. They danced until the song ended, and then the next song. They let each song finish their sentences, one after another. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Federico. Next up, we have Julian Shendelman. Julian lives with his husband and dogs near Philadelphia. After pursuing and ultimately abandoning an academic career as a queer trans theorist, Julian turned his attention to reestablishing his writing practice and community. His poetry chapbook, Dead Dad Club, was published by Nomadic Press in 2017, and his creative nonfiction has appeared in Philadelphia Stories and Bat City Review. He's been a fellow at the Lambda Lit Retreat for Emerging LGBTQ+ Writers in 2012 and the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts in 2022. When he's not freelancing, he's running Collective Lit. Please welcome Julian.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Trisha and Karen and everyone else. Really happy to be, well, in my house, but here with you all as well. This is an excerpt from Suspension Points, sort of from the middle part of the story. So just for context, the narrator is a semi-recently divorced trans man who has been assigned a volunteer shift as a dungeon monitor at a queer play party, which is the first one he's ever attended. And the host, Maureen, is showing him the ropes, so to speak. All right. Maureen pointed out a supply station, a fire extinguisher, sharps container, spray bottles of alcohol, and industrial rolls of paper towels, puppy training pads, a first aid kit, boxes of nitrile gloves in every size, condoms, dental dams, packets of water-based lubricant, safety scissors, and bottled water, some kind of kit for dealing with vomit. You never know, said Maureen. I must have looked uneasy, simultaneously too old to be new and too late for initiation. Don't worry, she promised. Your job is just to point people to the supplies and to grab me if something goes wonky. Back upstairs, she handed me a red glow stick. Your shift lasts 1 hour and starts at 9:30, she said. I sank into the couch across from the cat trainers, studying the laminated guide. On the topic of ensuring consent, the guide recommended I introduce myself to players who appeared to be in the early stages of a scene, reminding them of the rules, pointing out the available supplies, and telling them to flag me down if they needed something. If something non-consensual happened, I was supposed to run and get Maureen. I was glad I wouldn't have to personally intervene. Determining what was and wasn't consensual seemed more complicated than the guide had implied. How was I supposed to know a good beating from a bad one? First time? Asked the butch. She said her name was Sharon and introduced her wife, Sabrina, and their kitten, Amethyst. You can give them a treat if you want, Sabrina said, reaching into the drawstring pouch dangling from the side of her stiff corset. She handed me an Oreo, and Amethyst's head swiveled in my direction. The kitten scrambled over, lifting their front paws to beg. I extended the Oreo, and they gave it a skeptical sniff before chomping it out of my hand and skittering back to the safety of their owner's feet. I wondered what my own untrainable cats were up to in my absence. A pair of matching strays that had shown up on my front porch several months ago, just weeks after my ex had moved out. She was allergic, or so she said. A year prior, our normie neighbors invited us over for dinner, failing to mention their cat. Halfway through the meal, a gray tabby sauntered through the room, and my ex began scratching wildly at herself, claiming we had to go, that her throat was closing up. I was crushed. I was just starting to let my actual personality out of the highly curated safe I store it in at work and most parties. I'd even made a risky innuendo about the sausages they'd served us, and the neighbors had genuinely laughed. The evening was abruptly cut short, and the neighbors never asked us back. I couldn't decide if it was my ex's performance or my blue joke that had severed the nascent bond, but I preferred not knowing. Schrodinger's social anxiety. Anyway, after 3 days of watching the malnourished calicos blinking at me from the porch, I began putting out dishes of water, then cans of tuna. After a week of feedings, they slipped past me into the house. Apart from a hard-won trip to the vet for checkups, chip scans, and neutering, the twins hadn't left home since. They filled my home with a sense of duty I'd feared was irreplaceable, despite them being too feral to be touched. I belonged to them more than they belonged to me. Before I'd left for the play party, I'd explained that I would return in time to dish out their daily allotment of pâté. Sharon and Sabrina's kitten, Amethyst, licked the back of their hairless wrist and wiped the Oreo crumbs from their lips. They trilled at the entryway curtain as the new arrivals trickled in, giddy partygoers wearing outfits that ranged from industrial goth club wear to khakis and polos. The latter changed into Technicolor Lolita dresses, rubber wrestling singlets, strappy lingerie, or military garb before drifting over to the snack table for a few cubes of cheese. I caught myself biting my nails. You'll be okay, said Sabrina. DMing is easy. The community mostly keeps itself in check. Sharon offered an encouraging smile. Don't think about it as being the fun police. Just think of yourself as a helper. At 9:30, I cracked the glow stick and fastened it around my neck, then bid adieu to the couch crew. Downstairs, a woman dressed like an aging Joan Crawford fastened a pair of patent leather shoes onto the feet of a giggling sissy seated on a massage table. A billowing super short petticoat a la Shirley Temple fanned out over the vinyl cushion. Joan rose and cupped her sub's chin, long red nails pressing into the stubbled, blushing flesh. I'm sorry to interrupt you, I whispered, but I just wanted to introduce myself. I'll be the monitor for the next hour. I pointed out the supply station. Be a darling and bring us a sharps container and some small gloves, rubbing alcohol, and puppy pads, Joan Crawford asked. I hesitated, trying to remember if the laminated guide had said anything about ferrying supplies back and forth like a kinky waiter, then nodded. Thank you, dear, said Joan. My girl's a bleeder. Just like mommy, said Shirley. We had always said we didn't want kids. Piled in the back of an ancient minivan in the middle of the night with other plastered classmates, Ash and my ex and I declared ourselves immune from reproduction, irrevocably queer, unbound from the trappings of heterosexual life, the wedding, the starter home, the baby shower. We'd already made a family, here, with our gender deviant friends careening down vacant freeways back to campus. Why get the government involved in love? Why wound a new generation with the horrors of our adolescent years? Why extend a hand toward uncertainty when the present was guaranteed and in dire need of attention? All the same, the radical corners of our lives were sanded down by time. Full-time jobs, home ownership, monogamy, and in Ash's case, children. I couldn't understand his lifestyle. I couldn't understand mine either. I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Wonderful, Julian. Up next, we have Rebecca Entel. Rebecca is the author of a novel, Fingerprints of Previous Owners, stories and essays in such journals as Guernica and Literary Hub, and Flash and Jellyfish Review, Copper, Nickel, and elsewhere. She teaches creative writing, U.S. and Caribbean literature, and the literature of social justice at Cornell College, where she also directs the Center for the Literary Arts. She mentors in the PEN American Prison and Justice Writing Program. Thank you. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Trisha and Karen, and everyone for being here. I'm going to read a very short flash piece. This is called How to Drink Enough Water in Wartime. You have finally logged out from your social media because it was making you physically ill. With less scrolling, you're not getting more done. You feel that bad news from journalists or emails sent somehow across the ocean but from nowhere is about you. People ask how you're doing as if it's about you. You fall ill with thinking anything's about you. You only see bad news. You're told the way to take care is with sleep, 8 glasses a day, and putting down your phone. You're told the world is getting more dangerous for you. Your grandmother finally seems right, that you live not in the after times, but in the in-between times. Still, you walk from your car to your house at the same pace and turn the deadbolt with the certainty of the faithful. You have never considered yourself one of the faithful. You have never known a day without the magic of faucets or a roof that even with storm-struck flying limbs will not hold. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Okay, so Michael's poems have appeared in Jubilant, the Los Angeles Review, Mudlark, Yes Poetry, Queen Mob's Tea House, and other publications. He lives in Brooklyn, New York, and has worked for 24 years as a community organizer and lawyer in the racial justice and tenants' rights movements. He has also worked for 10 years as a parent and 49 years as a child. Welcome, Michael.
They're calling you, and this is what they're saying. In the insolvable sun of a yellowing year, all of the newest tunes of tiredness are rolling about in the blacked out trucks. All of the yellowing trees are blue with an emptying outness, obviously. This means me and my rapidly oxidizing friends. My family owned a yellow string of cars so long ago the memory is brown, an opal, skylark, and a dart. It was easy to spot them in parking lots, all of them wrecked, except the skylark and the dart. Marianne Moore supposedly invented several names for cars Ford Motor Company politely did not build: the Pathfinder, the Thunder Anticipator, Pastelogram, the Yellowing Sclera. I made up most of those. My very yellow hat is gone. I must get out there. If you strike the day down, it will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Thank you so much, Michael. Wonderful. Up next, we have Kathryn Silver-Hajo. Kathryn is a Pushcart Prize Best Microfiction, Best Small Fictions, and Best American Food Writing nominee. The Sweet Soft Side of Dates was selected for the 2023 Wig Leaf Top 50 long list. Kathryn's work appears in Atticus Review, Craft, Emerge Literary, Ghost Parachute, New Flash Fiction Review, Pithead Chapel, Ruby Literary, the Ekphrastic Review, The Fair, and other lovely journals. Her flash collection Wolf Song and YA novel Roots of the Banyan Tree were both published in 2023. She lives in Providence with her husband and curly-tailed pup, Kaya. Welcome, Kathryn.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. All right. So after publishing my novel last year, I mostly work in, seems I'm attracted to write extreme short form fiction these days. So these are very small little pieces, kind of my musings on life and death. The Divide. I hadn't spoken with Grandma since she went into assisted living. I missed visiting her lemon and love-infused apartment at holidays, our weekly calls. Now we chatted about my MFA program, the Haitian nurse who snuck her beignets and pan patat. Before hanging up, she asked, "Sorry, dear, who is this again?" As they lower the coffin into the earth, Ruby senses the caterpillar crawling up her leg, shudders, flicks it away. When it returns, she sees that it's the black and amber of a familiar flannel shirt. Ruby closes her eyes, tries to ignore the tickle on her leg, but despite all efforts at evading that woolly bear, it insists on clinging. "Soon you'll be free," she whispers. "Now let me do the same." And this last one is the strike through piece. And if you can't see it, I'll just indicate what struck through so it kind of makes sense on screen. What's left? Order finger sandwiches. Make his favorite caponata. Call brawling sibs. Call Dan, Bob, Ray, plant tree on Mount Jefferson, scatter ashes on Long Island Sound. Iron black clothes. He'd say white. Box up 50 years. Box up musical compositions. Say goodbye. No goodbyes. Remember? Press his bathrobe to your face. Breathe deeply.
Thank you, Kathryn. Beautiful. Susan's poems have appeared in the Somerset Review, Volt, Crab Creek Review, the Southampton Review, West Branch, Permafrost Online, Juked Online, and other journals. She teaches at Idaho State University and is poetry editor at Prompt Press. Welcome, Susan.
Hello. I'm delighted to be in Cleaver and to participate in this evening's reading. The short poem in the spring 2024 issue is from a series called Ligertown. It's named after a derelict private game park in southeastern Idaho that gained national notoriety in September 1995 when 19 of its lions and ligers, that's a lion-tiger hybrid, broke out into the nearby town of Lava Hot Springs. That night, the escaped animals were killed, And later, when officials entered the complex, they discovered 70 hybrid wolves, over 30 more big cats, and conditions that were far worse than was previously thought. Heraldic attitude, photograph of Lion 9. Goldenrod lines the creek like torches lighting the road to a garrison. Narrow banks shortbread mold the lion's spine and chest, but his red gold mane floats out as Ophelia models hair. Bathtub water was freezing. One giant paw propped on other. He's posed on his side. Some rulers have felt under siege. Light sheds in clumps till it clogs the camera's drain. Viewfinder molts, colors are lesion. One time I stared, kneeled to the bulk bin of circus cookies at Winco. Pale figures of elephants, tigers, camels have their tops iced pink or white with royal blue sprinkles. They don't make boar, hedgehog, deer, only bulk in the ring. Damp makes tawny lion dark. Bullet hole must be snug to creek bottom. The sweetgrass, though, ballets in sleek green, twirls out the frame. Frontiers don't trouble pleasure. Ignore what's at the gates. Thank you.
Wonderful, Susan. Thank you so much. Up next, we have Rachel Toliver. Rachel's work has appeared in Story Quarterly, Speculative Nonfiction, Mid-American Review, Prairie Schooner, Creative Nonfiction, West Branch, Brevity, and other journals. Her essay, Catharsis Diagnosis, won the Chattanooga Review's 2019 Lamar York Prize. Two of her essays have been named as notable in Best American Essays. She holds an MFA in nonfiction from Ohio State University and lives in Philadelphia. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. On what used to be the R7, on what used to be the R8, on what used to. In those days, what I call my girlhood, there was always a man, and he was always at the end of the train. It mattered less who the man was. It was the train and the going that gave him a name, a measure, a distance between. Here in Philly, in Germantown, the sunset on Slate, the beech trees losing track of themselves. The streets that, when I was a girl, would make me a grown-up. Then I grew up, but I didn't realize I was growing up because growing up took so long, all the years of boredom interspersed with years of hurt. I lived for a while in Ohio. No trains there when I was in Ohio, and this read in me like heartbreak, like a hitch across the wrong track. From Germantown, you take the R8, but it's not called the R8 anymore because of a confusion caused to tourists. Still, when you take it, what you're taking is the R8 and its known way, it's over the river way, as it makes beautiful sounds. The sounds it makes are all like ruin, ruin, ruin. Oh, my heart, ruin, ruin. There was always a man I wanted to see. And then I saw him. When I lived in Philly, the man was in New York. When I lived in New York, the man was in Philly. My longing went as train tracks did, R7 there, R7 back. Yes, my longing, the way it ran, an echoing repetition of itself. Now in these years, I'm back home, not in girlhood, but something resembling girlhood, like the shadow weaving and ticking through gravel and ditches resembles the train. Standing outside Market East, I think this is everything. The way kids set it, a sigh, the way everything is like water filling up a space. So I bum a cigarette from a lean young person with a bike because I need to borrow the breath for being here, being beneath this moment. The skyline vaults before me. In this world of bought things, Market East is a bought thing, now Jefferson Station. I don't do what I used to, which is go into a bar, sit there, get a beer alone because a beer alone could hold its upright soul and wait. It was waiting for nothing. It was just myself, just there. In Germantown on the street, I could say I'm longing for myself, my younger girl self. But really, I'm following those streets, their tiers of lilies, not looking for myself, just looking until there's no self to be found. There's only the looking. I used to go to the place where the you that called was, on trains mostly, the best way to go before changing my mind. On a train born from dark unto dark, following the way of all those drinks, following the way of a river, the way of a highway, the way of something unrelenting and going and inevitable. I walk around Philly thinking about sobbing. I'm not sobbing, just thinking about sobbing. The breath that comes between the sobs. I'm a fan of breathing, my Ohio therapist said. I know I could just do yoga instead of sobbing, instead of thinking always about sobbing. But my breathing only comes through the dream of sobbing. Close your eyes. In the visualization exercise, I thought of the Jersey Shore, LBI. Then I started sobbing. What's this? What's this bringing up for you? No train goes there to LBI. There's only the train to AC, which I would have taken, sure, back then in the no ocean, no train, only therapy of Ohio. Any train to any ocean. Anyway, everyone thinks of their stupid beach. Anyway, what I needed was the sobbing substituted for an impossible Atlantic. I stuttered again. I'll never get back there. Yet that's what I have here, back here, the upwelling I find when I walk around Philly, the tide that rushes, the breath, and then the other breath, the word enduring, the word endure. And oh, when I lived in Ohio and came home that one time flying through Newark, the train from there. I used to take this train from New York too, the R7 as a girl, by which I mean my girlhood. Not girlhood really, but when I was in college and then just after, all my body's momentum made for following a man to somewhere, from somewhere, either one. What's in Croydon? I wondered on that train line. What is Croydon? What's Tacony? Now I say the words like certain prayers, like little low candles lit. Croydon, I whisper, Tacony. I wrote I used to a bunch years ago, over and over, just little assertions, the feeling of perpetual you got from looking out a train window. Ongoing action in past tense. When I wrote down I used to, everyone in my writers group said too much white space, said not enough plot, said yes, but what next? That was the point. What next? Always what next? I used to, action ongoing. But they wanted linear, as in train line, as in you and you, as in destination.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rachel. Next up, we have T.S. Bender. T.S. is a writer and teacher who grew up outside of Philadelphia and now lives in Maryland with his wife, son, and beagle. In summer 2023, he took part in the Kenyon Review Writing Workshop for Teachers, and in 2024, he is a member of the One Story Writing Circle. His fiction has previously appeared in Shenandoah, and he's working on a novel, which includes Miguel's Sancho. Welcome.
All right. Thank you, Trisha. Thank you all. It's great to follow up a story about SEPTA and the old R7, R8 and all that. So Miguel Sancho is about 2,000 words. So I'll be reading the first half of it or so. It was some point early in August, a Thursday or Friday, some point at the end of the week, that Miguel didn't show up to work. And that morning, as the sun streamed into the garage of the ground shop and mowers rumbled in place, the guy said that Miguel would be in. He don't miss work, Victor said, and someone else said to check the kitchen, that maybe he was in there with Mary, and Victor smirked and said it was too early for that. But later, long after starting at 6, long after finishing the first jobs and then the second ones. Victor came by the golden willow beside the 14th green that me, Finn, and Hilberto had gathered under after push mowing around trees and benches and wherever else the rough mower couldn't get to. Victor slipped through the dangling branches that swayed just above the ground, adjusting his pants, as he told us that he'd heard from Miguel in Alabama somewhere after driving all night on his way to Michoacan. It was Miguel Sancho, Victor said, the guy living in his house, spending time with his kids, and of course, fucking his wife. He'd known this all along, ever since he came to the States back in September, but he was saving up to bring his family here, sending them money every month, waiting till his wife and kids were with him again. He knew that soon there'd be enough, and they'd leave Michoacan and any Sancho behind. But when he called the night before, he heard him in the house, heard him in bed with his wife. So he left and was on his way home. I asked Victor when he'd be back, but Victor said, "You don't come back from that shit." "No way," he said. "Does she know about Mary?" I said, "or Yolanda?" Victor glared at me. His usually round eyes narrowed as his pudgy cheeks and boyish face turned menacing. "Pinche gringo, what does that matter?" "He's been with them, right? I saw him with Mary down here last week," I said, pointing to the clearing beyond the green, where guys on the grounds crew and sometimes building maintenance brought Mary or Yolanda or some other woman from the kitchen or housekeeping staff. This whole area, holes 13, 14, and 15, split in half by the creek that flowed from the water hazard on 7 and trickled into the woods we called the valley, the lowest section on the course. And where we were then, under the willow, and the clearing behind us, was the lowest of all. We could sit and rest, shielded by the steep hill past the 13th green and the other hill that rose beside the 14th green, and also by the line of maples and the willow, and see or hear any approaching carts long before we'd be seen. Far from the clubhouse, from the eyes of members who reported any idleness to the general manager, who then came down on our boss, and hidden even from the members' beautiful stone homes that bordered much of the course, we found refuge in the valley. We felt freer there, under the cool shade of the trees, listening to the gentle flow of the creek. Back in June, up on the 15th tee, as me and Miguel filled divots, he showed me pictures from his daughter Lola's first birthday party. He hadn't spoken to me much before then, but he'd nearly cried that day, scrolling through his phone and zooming in on his little girl. And there was one picture, as Miguel's wife opened presents, of Lola on a man's lap, his hands holding hers, helping her to grab helplessly at the wrapping paper. If that was the man, did Miguel know it at the time, aware of this man who had come into his wife and children's lives, but unable to acknowledge it? Victor had said that Miguel knew all along, and maybe he turned to Mary and Yolanda only then, only after he knew, unable to last without the touch of another woman, unable to work day after day for his family that was no longer completely his. I said it again, that Miguel had been with Mary the week before, but Victor didn't respond. I leaned against the cart and kicked at a rock embedded deep in the grass, and I said, "I just thought that was what you all do." And I will pause there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Up next we have Claudia Monpere. And Claudia's flash appears or is forthcoming in Craft, Smoke Long Quarterly, The Forge, Atlas and Alice, Tramp Set, Fictive Dream, Atticus Review, and elsewhere. Her short stories, poems, and creative nonfiction appear in such journals as the Kenyon Review, the Cincinnati Review, River Teeth, Prairie Schooner, New Ohio Review, and Hunger Mountain. Claudia Monpere received the 2023 Smoke Long Workshop Prize and has been nominated multiple times for Pushcart and for Best of the Net. Welcome, Claudia.
Thank you so much, Trisha, and thank you, Karen, and thank you, everyone, for coming. It's lovely to hear all these wonderful writers. I'm reading a flash, Salt Paint. Tina and her sister Meredith are painting cats on the 6-foot cardboard coffin. Tuxedo cats, tortoise shells, tabbies, Maine Coons. Meredith is the real artist. Tina should have left her to it, sick of her sister offering advice or silently hovering. Hiding her hands under the table so Meredith can't see, Tina kneads her fingers from the arthritis pain, focuses on her next panel. Meredith has assigned them half each, spread about. This way our styles will be mixed, Meredith says. The whole will have integrity. They need to finish painting the coffin tonight. Tina longs to leave the cats behind and dreads it. It will mean moving on to the other part of the painting. She watches her sister finish up an Abyssinian, the tail long and perfectly tapered, then gets up to pee, sneaking brandy into her coffee. When Tina returns, Meredith asks about her arthritis. Are you doing your physical therapy when I'm not here? Are you eating salmon? Lots of leafy greens? Tina lies and says yes. She hid the boxes of processed food before her sister arrived. Bright orange mac and cheese, Fruit Loops, frozen dinners with mashed potatoes and fried chicken, Oreos, what she craves these days. Okay, I think we're done with the cats, Meredith says. Let's paint the gymnast panels. Years ago, when Tina's daughter, Cass, was 11, she slept badly even then. She woke her mother at 3 a.m. crying. She couldn't decide if she loved cats or gymnastics more. Tina said she could love them both equally, but her daughter shook her head. No, raised voice, I have to choose. She cuddled with one of her 3 cats at the foot of the bed. I know what you think, Ginger, she said. Meredith goes right back to work, painting a silhouette of a handspring, and Tina begins a wolf turn, seeing Cass's smile when she finally mastered the move. Tina's tears are coming fast again. Knowing how anxious this makes her sister, she tries to wipe them away. She wipes and she wipes and she wipes, but then she thinks, fuck it, and lets herself feel the warm tears drip down her face. She leans over the wolf-turned silhouette, her tears dripping into the black paint, then mixes them together. The sisters paint silhouettes of split leaps, stag leaps, straddle jumps. Cass mastered them all. College recruiters hounded her when she was just 13. She plowed through anxiety and depression, ankle, wrist, and shoulder injuries, a serious gymnastics accident in college, which resulted in surgery and an oxycodone prescription. The horizon is no lullaby, Cass said during one of her many stints in rehab. Tina paints this on the coffin over Meredith's objections, her fingers swollen, burning. She remembers Cass's first few rehab programs when hope still fluttered in both of them. Then she stands. I think we're done, she says. The next day is windy and gray. They drive the cardboard coffin to the mortuary. They carry it for several blocks, San Francisco parking being what it is. Even with the handles, it's awkward, heavy. When they stop for a rest, a huge gust of wind sweeps the coffin up out of their grasp. It tumbles downhill as they chase after it, both women yelling. Wind swirls Tina's hair into her eyes. The coffin slides and flips. Meredith screams, damn it, running faster. But Tina sees something. There's grace in the coffin's movement. She slows down. She watches. She simply watches, conjuring her daughter, her body leaping through air and years. Those enchanted limbs defying gravity.
Beautiful. Yeah, really heartbreaking, like Rebecca said. Beautiful. Thank you, Claudia. Up next, we have Sophie Nunberg. Sophie is a French-American writer from the hills of San Francisco. She is currently pursuing a PhD at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where she serves as the nonfiction editor of Cream City Review. Welcome.
Thank you so much. These pieces have not only just been beautiful, the readings have just been so lovely. I feel very lucky to be among them. This is called A Constellation of Errors. It's a nonfiction piece. I study the events of my birth like astrologers do stars in the sky. I'm already late when, 2 days before I finally do break my mom's amniotic sac, a 6.9 earthquake nearly splits our city clear in two. My parents' marriage never had a chance, and now I never seem to be on time. The morning after the shake, my father takes the only picture of my mother pregnant. She's in a royal blue cashmere turtleneck pulled taut across her stomach and electric orange pants. Now my phone storage is littered with self-portraits. When the contractions do start, she loads herself into the back seat of my father's gray Alfa Romeo. He finishes a cigarette outside. The detours of closed roads twist around the city right into San Francisco's Castro on Halloween of all days. The teeny Alpha is swallowed by the ecstatic air of the city's favorite holiday. The rounds of colorful lights dive like comets into my mother's lungs. Now, this is why I wear electric blue eyeshadow from brow bone to lash line every day in the 6th grade. My father edged the car forward. The slow crawl through stole any hope of my future patience. I imagine yelling. We are a family of yellers. They make it to the hospital. My father doesn't go into the delivery room, cementing the terms of our relationship. After the divorce, my father buys a house on the street where they block off the cars on Halloween. My mother, enthusiast of all things modern medicine, gives birth to me without an epidural. Now, this feels too intimate for us. I am exactly 8 pounds and exactly 20 inches with exemplary vitals. A perfect baby, the obstetricians note, asking if they can show me around to the residence. This was my favorite part. This was my parents' favorite part of the story, how the doctors carry me away. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sophie. And last but not least, our last reader of the evening is Luke Koester. Luke is a queer Asian American poet from Omaha, Nebraska. He is working towards a BFA from the University of Nebraska, Omaha, where he works as the poetry editor for the literary magazine 13th Floor. He has poems featured or forthcoming in Main Street Rag, Pinhole Poetry, and Oakland Arts Review. Welcome, Luke.
Thank you for having me. Every reader who's gone to this point has done so well, so I'm so excited to be here and read my poem. Hospice intake. I close my eyes and jump off a stone-pointed cliff. I'm back to falling into the gulch below La Quebrada. I was high diving only 4 months ago. I open my eyes to a room blanketed in warmth. It's too warm, and I'm still falling onto each word the doctor chews and spits out like stale gum. The hunch in my spine juts out like a rock. It's cold, I tell the doctors. Touch it. I think it feels like the coastal breeze and seashore waters. It points me toward memories of falling off more comfortable cliffs. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. That was really amazing. I agree with several people have said what a great bunch of readers we have. Not everybody always reads their work as beautifully as you all did, so this was a really lovely and super enjoyable evening. Thanks to everybody. Please stay connected to Cleaver. I'm gonna let Karen have the last word.
Yeah, just thank you so much, everyone. I'm so glad that we do these issue readings. It's so wonderful to hear everyone give voice to their work and to see people coming back who are our previous contributors and our readers coming in to just support the readings. Thank you, all of you, for trusting us to be stewards of your work. And thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening. See you next time.